Good day, sirs and madams. Good day also to our esteemed professor, Dr. Guntalidad. Now, the study that was assigned to me was titled, Do Curricular Texts Address Children's Existential Questions, and How Are Such Questions to be Met in School, by Karin Spohr from the Department of Applied Educational Science, Umeå University, Umeå, Sweden. Now, for the overview of the problem, the Scandinavian people consist of Danish, Norwegian, and Swedish people. All these three people practice religious education, and their curricula contain the livsfrågor, meaning existential questions. These livsfrågor, or existential questions, caught the attention of Spohr, who wanted to find out whether these questions are addressed really by the respective curricula. She also wanted to find out how these questions are met through teaching in school. For the research objectives, Spohr had two questions. Number one, do the curricular texts address children's existential questions? And number two, how are such questions to be met in school? The researcher believed that all children have questions that they want to be answered when they go to school. Therefore, the school must attend to these questions through designing a curriculum that aims to address this need of children. These questions are labeled as livsfrågor, or existential questions. In 1969, the Swedish curriculum introduced the concept of livsfrågor, translated as existential questions, in the school subject called Knowledge of Religion. This was designed to give opportunities to address the questions on existence among children and youth. Now, the main goal of the study was to analyze by comparing the religious education curricula of the three countries, namely Denmark, Norway, and Sweden, in terms of addressing these existential questions of children, and as an output to characterize the curricula being studied. Now, why these three countries are chosen? These three countries, to some extent, do culturally influence one another. They show not only similarities, but also differences. One striking thing common in all these three countries is the presence of the idea of livsfrågor in the respective curricula, especially in religious education. The study limited itself to syllabi from the Swedish school subject Religions Conscript and of its Norwegian and Danish equivalents. The use of the concept livsfrågor in four Swedish curricula from 1969, 1980, 1994, and 2011 provides a background to the comparison. Based on a critical reading of the text, nuances and shifts in emphasis are important in characterization of the curricula. It should be noted also that this curriculum study was a component of the larger research project, The Child and the Curriculum, which also examined historical studies such as the research that supported the formation of the Swedish curriculum known as Livsfrågor during the 50-year period. The concept of the phrase livsfrågor, which is introduced and used in the curriculum, has drawn criticisms for the conceptual vagueness of the term. However, as the research interest of this study was the significance of livsfrågor in the studied curricula, the interest was not per se whether the concept has remained the same over time or whether it can be seen to have exemplified, or rather conceptual clarity or not, but rather that what variations the studied text exemplify in the relationships between the child and the curriculum. Additionally, the search in the studied text for livsfrågor was broadened, opening to a search also for fragor, or questions, and thereby also addressing students' questions more generally. Livsfrågor is in this paper translated into English as existential questions. Another term that has been used is vital questions, but existential questions is preferred as children's questions, while learning here are understood to have existential significance to them. Now, For the research methods, for the research design, this study employed a comparative content analysis of Swedish, Norwegian, and Danish national curricula for religious education in use in 2019, focusing on existential questions and how these are addressed in teaching. For the respondents or participants, there were no identified respondents as the data were derived from curricula and syllabi text. For the research instruments, no research instruments were crafted. Again, the study was a curricula text-based research and the syllabi from the Swedish, Norwegian, and Danish schools subject religion and its equivalent. For the data analysis, since the goal was to see the relationship between the child and the curriculum, there were three overall questions that guided the researcher in the analysis of the text, namely, whose existential questions are to be studied, how are they to be studied, and finally, how can the relationship between the child and the curriculum be characterized? The third question then sums up the responses of the first two. The researcher began by looking for key terms considered relevant in achieving a goal for the religious education subject. One approach used was content analysis, and this was followed by a thematic analysis with a focus on nuances and context of the terms, search for the word livsfragor or existential questions and other words related to it, namely livsaskadning or worldview, livstokning, life interpretation, and also fragor or questions, and many other related terms. Now, as this study endeavored to characterize the three curricula in use, two different analytical tools were used by that of Hartman and Obiesta in 2009. Hartman's proclamatory code. This code believes that what is taught is also what is learned. In this code, the teacher is believed to have the initiative to assess whether what he or she teaches is successfully learned, or if he or she observes that the learners are not interested, then the more time will be spent in teaching such particular topics. Hartman also came up with another code that opposes the first one, the dialogical code. This code considers the interaction between the teacher and the students as very crucial moment in the teaching process. Furthermore, it looks into the encounter between a written text as the reader and the reader, I mean. In addition, it gives importance to the quality of what a student gets out of the pedagogical process. However, one challenge with the dialogical approach by Hartman is that the encounters do not produce a uniform outcome for the students. I believe this is so because students come from diverse backgrounds and they vary in their intellectual capacity. Now, Biesta, on the other hand, was another analytical tool used to characterize the curricula. Biesta's idea was that the curriculum should reflect the three distinct functions of education, namely qualification, socialization, and subjectification. One major function of education is qualification. The school and other educational institutions not only provide children and young people with knowledge, skills, and understanding, but also with a natural tendency to form judgment on what things to do and how to do them. Skills that are deemed important for them to do something in a societal context. By socialization, this is also another function of education. This relates to how children and youth become members of the society. It implies that the curriculum should be designed not only to focus on the development of the cognitive skills of the learners, but also to address the social needs of the learners. By subjectification, it refers to the processes of individuation or of becoming a subject, which means that an individual becomes independent and autonomous in his thinking and decision making. This is crucial as this is when the children and the young people often ask existential questions. Now, for the ethical considerations, communications and permits were obviously accomplished to avoid issues on data privacy. Now, let us proceed to the results. The study found that among the three curricula studied, the Danish curricula most explicitly address children's existential questions. The Danish curricula strongly reflects a child-centered approach in that it recognizes the meaning-searching questions of students, which provides a strong subjectification emphasis where aspects of socialization and qualification are also present. In terms of the Norwegian curricula, there subtly emphasize a dialogue with school children. The Norwegian curricula suggests that the use of dialogue as a platform for teaching and learning socialization into a multicultural and multi-religious society to which aspects of qualification and subjectification are added. Their curriculum hardly addresses the existential questions or livsfrågor. Meanwhile, the Swedish syllabus links existential questions to worldviews, general systems of thoughts, and not to addressing students' own questions. The Swedish curricula emphasize a strong qualification. However, this means the curricula they designed were more of equipping the learners of knowledge and skills with aspects of socialization integrated into it. It should be noted that their curricula were found to have less emphasis on subjectification, which is very important in addressing the existential questions. In short, their curricula did not give attention to livsfrågor or children's existential questions. One thing that is worth noticing, though, is that although this research studied students' existential questions in religious education, this study contributes towards general moral discussions on the role of children's questions and the possibility of addressing this through the kind of education we provide them. So for the conclusion, how children's existential questions are responded to in studied curricula. Denmark, through a strong child student-centered approach, the meaning-searching questions of students are recognized, which provides a strong subjectification emphasis where aspects of socialization and qualification are also addressed. In Norway, dialogue was suggested as a platform for teaching and learning socialization into a multicultural and multi-religious society to which aspects of qualification and subjectification are also discussed. In Sweden, their curricula emphasize a strong qualification approach with the integration of some aspects of socialization. However, it is found lacking in the aspects of subjectification. Therefore, the curricula were found silent in terms of answering children's existential questions. Now, for the limitations of the study concerning the method used with search terms and Hartman and Viesta, as tools for the characterization of syllabi, it can be said that there is the risk of reducing nuances and details. But on the other hand, it helps to bring tendencies out. To the limits of any curricular study of text, the critique can be directed at what takes place in the classroom may be different from what the curricula state. On the other hand, what curricula state opens up for possibilities and encourages as well as can limit and direct while it is a worthwhile study in itself. So for my personal insights and reflections, reading this study gave me the following personal insights and reflections. Firstly, the inspiration to look into our own curriculum or curricula, but with focus on the core values of the school. Secondly, conduct an investigation of or review of how our school's core values are integrated in the curriculum or curricula. Thirdly, conduct an evaluation whether these core values are consistently included in the curriculum design and how these core values of the school are taught. So that would be all for my report. Thank you very much for listening.